Do you think they had a conversation before they had a conversation with you?
Well, they must have. They must have.
Because it was so choreographed. It was like the Backstreet Boys of emotional discourse.
Done in a real backstreet.
In comes Troy. Josh, I think. Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you too. It's been a while.
Wow, you know, when I see friends that I've known for a long, long time, and I can call you that, I feel good. I feel good saying that.
We've barbecued.
We've barbecued
many times.
Yeah, we've had lunches. We've had emotional lunches. We've had times.
we've had girl brunches.
Josh cried, and then I cried, and then Maggie laughed. She's such a little trooper.
And then they're like, "Do you want to order?" Yeah, I do.
I'll have the salmon. But when I haven't seen someone I'm really fond of, you know, who's been going through it, like we all have in our own way, for the first time in a long time, yeah, I get emotional.
You know, we all go through it at one point or another. You know,
We do.
and I was working with this girl, Nikki Lane, and she was she hadn't made a record in 5 years, and she said, "Well, I had to live to have something to write about," and so I always thought, "Oh yeah, gotta just keep living, man." That's very McConaughey, but
Do you know him?
not even in a casual way.
I met him once in a virtual interview. He asked me to interview him for something to do with his whiskey, and
He's got a whiskey?
yeah, he's got a whiskey. And they introduced us. Matthew, this is Zane. Zane, this is Matthew. And the first thing I said to Matthew McConaughey on a virtual call in front of a bunch of people was, "Hey, Matt." And he said, "Anything but Matt." That was my first.
So you're off to the races.
Off to a great start. It took every tool in my box to get out of that one.
But I think my grandpa would have been like, "No worries, Matt. Anyways, we
Double down. Matty boy.
Mateo Potato."
Matty boy. Yeah, you know, it's a great it's a fair and sage observation. The life that you live that inspires the art that makes us live our life. This is the twist in the tale, right? That you inspire us to go and live our life. And I think that we get insatiable as fans. We like the loop that you're in. I like a Queens of the Stone Age every 18 months, you know? I like an album and a tour. It keeps me going. But the absence of the band has made the heart grow fonder. And you must feel that now people are hearing the music and seeing shows.
Well, I think there's a couple things. One of the things is I think that sort of leaping out of the darkness, the surprise, you know, once you make a record, but that coming out and the way that you come out and the sort of energy that you're putting out, that just the pulling, the pushing, the poking, the prodding, that's all done with love to people you love, your fans, you know. And I enjoy that. You need to leave to do that. And so disappearing is really the mainstay of the art of reappearing.
It's true. Right? It's true.
And also, I've known you for many years, and you know, some people, they're playing and making art to gain notoriety or make dough or and there's so many different reasons, and all those are fine with me. You know, for me, I just want it to be real, and that's very vague, but that means it has to be vulnerable and honest. I need to believe it's true, and I need to love it. And so I think in some of that hard times and difficult living and the sort of hallelujah that comes from surviving that stuff,
that's the work.
Writing directly about that is totally necessary.
I can imagine in a strange way that during those really tough times when a lot of us are lost and are wondering what the purpose is, that actually realizing perhaps within a brief moment that is your purpose in that moment, to live that experience because it will ultimately end up on a record or in some artistic space, gives you some kind of solace at that moment. Like, maybe this is kind of part of my job.
It's the job. But I think moreover, you know, much like the internet is this virtual place.
You're on that now? Finally?
Actually, I gave that shit up. I don't even fucking care.
You never got on that shit. We
Fuck all that. I was for like 6 months, and I thought, this makes me feel terrible.
Fucking dude still has a Yahoo account.
Yahoo!
See?
It's bitching to say. That's a great word that should be in all languages. Even the German should be like, Yahoo!
Well, I think we can claim that back now. I don't think that belongs to the internet anymore.
I'm just going to take this coolest guy ever and just take his last name name and make it my company. Here we are, Tesla.
Just yeah. The Yahoo is like this. Here you go. You can have that
Yahoo!
back. Exactly.
I'm on yeehaw.com, which is
Yeehaw.
it's a dating site. It's like farmers and cowboys only.
That may have already been taken.
Well, what I was saying before I was so rudely yeehawed was I yeehawed myself, frankly.
Yeah, I Yahooed you.
I yeehaw my fucking
I
self.
Yahooed you and you yee-hawed yourself, bro. Whatever.
Well, I've been yee-whoring myself out for... That's English, though. Ye old whore.
We're going out the box, ladies and gentlemen. I wondered when it was going to happen.
Yeah. But what I was saying is that, there's that virtual space inside. It's like when you feel not so great, and you just pick up an acoustic guitar and you're sitting on the edge of your bed and you have this feeling and you figure it out, that sort of virtual space inside that gets that feeling like, I think this is it. I think I got it. It's so like the weight lifts off your shoulders,
Is there ever too much pain to even pick the guitar up?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of trouble agreeing to get involved with this record just because there was so much still to figure out.
To say the word agreeing would suggest that others were urging you to get involved.
There was a little bit of urging.
Who's the most urgent?
I think the guys were like, this is your only way to successfully lift this off of you. It wasn't about going on tour
And making money and that stuff. Yeah,
it was like, how are you going to be all right if you don't do the thing that makes you all right?
Did it feel like a bit of an intervention? Was it that? Did it get to a point where you felt like the guys were like, look, do you think they had a conversation before they had a conversation with you?
Well, they must have. They must have.
Because it was so choreographed.
Well, but it was...
It was like the Backstreet Boys of emotional discourse.
Done in a real backstreet.
In comes Troy. Josh, I think.
But set in a real alleyway with... by the trash. But I...
That's love. That's friendship, though.
It was delivered in a, if not this, then what? And we recorded stuff about 2 years ago, but I didn't sing anything till November. I just couldn't, and it was just Mark Rankin and Mikey and I, because it was almost like someone asked about guests. Sometimes you guests, and that's always just to fuck around, really, and just have fun.
Well, you know a lot of good people.
But when you're going to sing about stuff that's truly agonizing at times, it's just you want to do that in the dark alone. And when you're trying stuff for the first time, you want to fail by yourself so that you don't add embarrassment to it too.
It's got to get to a point, a surface level where embarrassment isn't even an option.
Well, so many of my lyrics start for the first 50 drafts. They just read like teen goth open mic. Dream journal.
You just like Dream Syndicate. You're like a bad Wayne Hussey.
I was in Joshua Tree once at this coffee place called Jeremy's. It was many years ago. It's not there anymore. It was like that open mic, and there was this kind of large and lovely goth teen, and and we're gonna have Stephanie come up, and everyone's like, and she's just like, "Fuck you, mom," and then she starts screaming "pussy," and I was just like, "Oh my." And at the end, I'm looking around, and everyone's fucked up, and I'm the only one. I'm like, that's fuck.
Oh, awesome.
And my lyrics start a lot like that.
You got to live the life to get the art out. That's the headline so far, and I think even you probably weren't expecting it to be so much, there to be so much life. I do feel that we go in phases of life where there's just a lot going on, and you realize you're so out of control. I was trying to think about when I feel like the roller coaster came to its natural conclusion and you had to get off. You're back on it now, by the way, but you had to get off it.
Yeah.
And I do think it was probably not to try to create a start time in trauma, but Anthony Bourdain, the loss of Anthony seemed to start quite a long period of loss for you.
That's exactly correct. And, things surrounding the Bataclan and start losing friends and people, and situations, but I I never feel like any of that stuff is directed at me or anything like that, or I don't, and I'm not much of a wallower. I just
There's no why me attached to it.
no, because you're here. I mean, I don't know. No one knows the answer to most of the big questions, except I'm comfortable with why are we here? And the temporary answer for me is because you are. So get started, and it won't be long. But that's been the purveying element for me, is that it won't be long. It's okay if Rome is burning and the Titanic is sinking. You will hit the water. I'm just saying, if the Titanic is sinking, that means free oysters and the bar's open.
I was going to say I could get one more song in.
Right, and I'm in the band, so it's like,
Yeah.
hit it, boys.
Hit it.
Who wants to fucking tango? I just feel like, yeah, of course you can hit the water. And I'm just saying, what do you want to do with the time we have left? And I think that's why I'm not huge on telling people what to do, especially in our music. It's like, who you should vote for? Go fuck yourself. Because that's not my, in fact, I'll turn the lights off and I'll turn the music up so you can whisper about who you really want to be and what you really want to do. And conspire, which is a word I love, and create this safe space where no one tells you what to do and no one stops you. All you have to do is not hurt anyone, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like we're working on this whole tailgating at our shows, heavy metal parking lot style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bringing back willful stupidity. Want to do something dumb? Come over to my house. That's my mantra for all this now.
I've always loved that philosophy in Queens of the Stone Age. There has been very much a pun. It's not even a pun. It's just a genuine reference to a wonderful moment, a come as you are, philosophy in the band.
Yeah.
But I know you, Josh. There are lines in the sand. We spoke live on Radio 1 when Nick left the band. That was a line in the sand for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
There have been times we've had conversations where you're like, not on my watch, not in this band, not while I'm alive.
Yeah.
And so I love how open you are to the human experience and allowing people to let their freak flag fly. But I also know you do have a compass.
Yeah. Well, I have short people that live in my house, and I and I'd like to do the right thing. And I made enough mistakes in my life but I always think, I guess, it's important to me that my close people know that we did all we could for each other. I guess that's where the compass is.
Well, I wanted to ask you this, with that being said, that was an emotional night on Radio 1. I thought about that the other day. That was so crazy that we did that.
Yeah.
That we spoke about Nick after leaving the band. The two of us live on radio. It was like,
especially a year or so on.
It was crazy. And it was meaningful for fans at the time. Did it help Nick?
I think that's the dark mystery question, is you just don't know. I also think that in the case of, parting ways with anyone or dealing with something difficult, in order to be, the adult thing is when you're doing something even when you don't want to, and you're doing it in a way, because when you're a kid, you just don't want to do something. You just try not to.
You just cut someone off. You move on.
Right. And you do it in a cruel way oftentimes. And I think being an adult is looking someone in the eye, and whether it's a relationship of any type, looking someone in the eye and saying honestly what you're going to do. And then you need to be willing to listen to someone say, I get it, fuck you, whatever they should be allowed to be themselves too.
But this is where the truth sits, from my side of it and from your side of it. We don't have to agree, but we know each other.
Yeah.
We know each other now.
Yeah, I think there's other forms that are a bit more cowardly and that are actually more hurtful than really, being honest about what you're going to do. I'm leaving, and I think you give someone else the chance at least to be themselves too, since you're saying that's what you want to do. I'd like to be myself, and then trying to give someone else the opportunity to be
It's actually true to the philosophy of the band. It actually maintains the principles that you established at the beginning, which is the party's open.
Yeah. Well, I also think that I've really come to understand that uh, you have these relationships, and when they're based on good communication, which is really what where we're at with Queens, especially now, the communication is better than ever. Sometimes when you're friends or lovers with people, it's like you're living these parallel lives and you're trying to grow together. And sometimes you grow apart. And if you can actually successfully uh, understand that and say, okay, we're pulling apart, but I love you, you know, then you have a chance at maybe growing back together another time. And you're also saying thank you for the moments we've had. And I understand. I mean, because what was the notion that you thought every relationship that you cared about would go their entire life till you died? And if they don't, you're upset. That's not, it's just not fair. And it's a bit goofy. I'm not sure who told, me that or you that, but that wasn't that person's, that person doesn't work here.
That's an acknowledgement on the record. That's definitely comes up a few times in the lyrics, this idea that not everything lasts forever and that you've got to find a way forward through it. The words, wow. All right.
Yeah.
The words on this album are so deliberate and so interesting. I think it's the best lyrical exercise you've ever put yourself through.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I worked really hard. It took me years actually, and in the end, it all came quickly like a flash, and it was none of the drafts before. It's almost because it was almost these incorrect drafts that serviced the pathway to get it right.
You have to fall off your skateboard 1,000 times, and then you get a kickflip, and it's like, I can do that now.
This is my religion. I need it to be real, or so I can do it. And I also really want to love it. But how do I love it? I want to love it because it's really honest, and it's who I really am when it comes to the words. And also, like, I'd like to, and that means being afraid to say stuff. And it also means just flat out saying things that are strange, like voyeurism at times too, which is just hard to do.
It is hard to do.
It's
a tongue
the first
twister.
time.
Yeah.
But the first time you're like, oh my God, I'm really gonna say that your inner child is a spoiled brat. I don't know. Some things are just hard to get across your lips, and maybe voyeurism is much easier than saying some of the emotional things that are true.
Yeah.
Like you're terrified. And you just are terrified. But that's that I just, I know that I want to love what I've made with the guys, and in the hopes that it will attract people that really love their music too, or can love it too. Like not being in the biggest band, but in the best band possible, or that even if it was 5 people, but they were saying, you saved me and I love it, then I would think, I would like breathe a sigh of relief,
It's just so, for me, it's interesting hearing you sing these words, though, with the band fired up behind you, and the music fired up behind you, because there's so much vulnerability and there's so much self-reflection going on here. I'm sure a lot of people are going to hear this record and they're going to come to a natural conclusion that there's a lot of shade being thrown and this is a byproduct of a very public and divorce. But I actually hear a lot of self-responsibility going on in here too, and a lot of vulnerability going on in here as well.
I would never say anything about the mother of my kids or anything like that.
No, I don't want you to.
And
by the way, I know the mother of your children.
Yeah, I would never. I would never do that. But I also, and I would never, I. By the same token, you must write about your life, and I think, I'm kind of soundtracking my life. That I guess that film of your life, to use that analogy, it's okay to take moments like, this I can't live as living as one is the loneliest number. Then there's there's all these songs about,
we will apply those to our life the way we see fit, but they're not about me and they're not necessarily about who. Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is, these songs and the words that go with them are an emotional snapshot where you stop the film, you pull out one frame. And one song it's like I'm lost, and in another one I'm angry, and they need to be these distilled versions of that. they need to be these honest versions of that, because one drop of true reality is enough, has enough flavor. So I guess I'm just writing about my life as honestly as I can. And I don't worry about what that does from there in terms of commentary by others. That's just too much work for me to pretend to care what other people I'm, I think the love, the hatred and adoration of strangers is like the flip side of a coin. But when you're not doing it for the money, that currency is worthless. You sort of, I can't get involved in what the people say.
Yeah, you can't. I agree with that.
In a way, it's none of my fucking business.
It is none of your fucking business. But it is a business for other people.
Of course.
That's the thing, and it is it's an age-old profession to go and analyze things that people make primarily from a heartfelt subconscious space. And with that, and in saying that, I think one of the things, if you asked a Queens of the Stone Age fan up until 4 years ago, what their primary observations about Joshua Homme is, it would be like confidence, powerful, energy, don't pity him. No pity, no time for pity. Get on with life. Be tough about it. But again, I'm just focusing on the lyrics, and then amongst all of the big statements that come through the songs is that I feel like you've been doing some work. Like you have had to take a step back and pull that armor off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever learned so much in such a short period of time.
Can we talk about that? Because I'm big on the learning.
At the end of the day, for me, the record, what is completely about acceptance. That's the key. My friends have passed, relationships have ended, difficult situations have arisen. I've had my own like physical and health things going on and things like that, but I'm okay now, and I'm 100% responsible for 50% of what's going on. You know what I mean? Like in any relationship, you're responsible for your half. And I whether that's friends, lovers, or dog owners, I think acceptance. I've always done a lot of big change, but I was sort of the engine of that change a lot of times. And so that makes that big change easier, so I would say. But in the last, even 7 years, you said Bourdain, and that's a good start for me, is I've been through a lot of situations where it doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's happening to you. And so I've been forced to sort of say, yeah, I don't like this, and I need to figure out where I'm at fault here, or I'm responsible here, or accountable here. And also, I need to also accept it for what it is. This is the reality, even if I don't like it. It would be a shame to hold on too tight to something that's slipping through your hands, and not just accept it for what it is. And I just don't want to do that. I think that's the acceptance that this record ended up being about, and someone else brought up there's a one song is very angry, and it's like, yeah, well, sometimes you get angry. Well, I don't know what you're saying. You're saying, what are you saying? Don't do that, or it's just are you noticing there's one that's angry?
I think you got it in one. I think this is an album about acceptance, and I think that so much of the identity that we develop from a young age is about control, and guess what? Rock stardom and being a really successful musician gives you so much you think you can control, right? The illusion is super heady when you're in charge of an organization like that, and everyone tells you you're fucking great. It's like, oh, I have so much control, and then you realize that life has other ideas, and it's like shit. And then you got to come back to the music and figure out what it feels like when you've shed that skin. And that's what this album feels like to me. Like, it's through and through Queens. Everything I love about Queens. But I just don't feel, can I say this? I'm just going to fucking say it.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
love you. I just don't think you're in denial anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be impossible for me to deny that.
I'm sorry if that's too on the
No. I
bold.
think, but I also think this is where I should be. This is where I'm meant to be, and although there's been a lot of difficulty, I'm not sure I would have it any other way, because I wouldn't feel how I felt, and also little things like I got a parking ticket, and I was like, I can handle that shit all day long. There's a lot of things below my pay grade right now in terms of getting me a rise out of me. And I also think I learned interesting things because I've always had these vulnerable moments. But when you're upset or hurt or scared, oftentimes my defense mechanism was like, let's come and get me. And I still obviously have that in me. I'm not, but I also, I realized, I've been sort of protecting my gentler side, thinking I should protect, even though it's the larger part of who I am.
This is what it's so fascinating to me, and it's so nice to be able to hear that and be able to open this door to the conversation. Because when I first met you, I was in awe of you. Like, everyone who meets their favorite musicians are, I was a big fan. I'm just like, man, I just get to fan out, right? It's like the purity of the relationship. I know my place. You know your place. You're impressing me, and I'm impressed. And then as I got to know you over time, I realized, wow, this guy is actually he's got like a really vulnerable side, and he's a really honest guy, and he's a really lovely guy, and that whole like fucking 6 foot something rock star on stage, the pirate of all pirates, fucking nicotine. I'm like, all right, that's great, but I know this other guy. And it's really cool that like I hear that on the record now, and I hear that side of you now. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't think it was totally absent prior, but I think this has been such a tsunami of something that just couldn't be avoided now. And also, I there's this funny thing. It's like before the word surrender really bothered me. It's like to give up. I'm not going to give up, and it's still something. Giving up is not in my. I'm not interested in that.
I don't think that. Yeah, but there's a different thing to surrender.
But then it's like giving in is totally different, and me thinking, oh, okay, and feeling really good about that too, giving in and letting something wash over me, and I've spent so much of my life trying to paddle upstream. And then I'm just like, fuck, this is my river. Why don't I just drop the paddle and go down the river? It's my, I mean, what am I, I'm fighting myself. A plastic bag over my fucking head. It's just, that doesn't make sense. Plus, at the end of it all, what I got from everything is just, looking at my littles and my family and my friends, and just and being like, fuck, I want to live really bad, and I don't know exactly what that means, but it's like, even when we did the first 2 shows, and I was like, fuck, I want to live so bad. And it's a strange and vague like lighthouse light that's like, whoa, I want to live, trying to shine a light on something beautiful that you care about.
Well, your senses are wide open, man. You're seeing and smelling and feeling and tasting things. And let's not forget that for a large chunk of time when you were touring in the first, what I'd call 2.0 of the band, let alone Caius and with Screaming Trees and whatnot, dude. I mean, this is the band who, one of your biggest songs is just a list of drugs.
Yeah, and it's a very accurate list.
It's But you got to sing that song from a different perspective now, right? I mean,
well, I do think that operating in the sort of gallows humor world that I've always lived in, where when life is good, it's funny, and when life is terrible and terrifying,
hilarious.
It's really funny. That sort of shit I feel like that song survives.
Definitely.
Because it's more ridiculous than ever, and the notion that it is, that it really doesn't say yes or no.
It's just a list.
It's just a list, motherfucker.
It's just a list.
But that's why when it got banned, I was like, it got banned in England right away, and it was like, our lists are illegal. What else is on the list of what's illegal other than number 1 lists?
That's a good question. I wonder if cocaine comes up on the NYT spelling bee.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I wonder if it does.
Especially, can you put it in a sentence that ends inside of my face? Yes, I can put it in a prison sentence for you. 5 years, no parole.
He's back with new material, ladies and gentlemen. It's Joshua Homme. I want to get into the making of the record in a second, but while we're talking about the list, we've talked about drugs before, man, and I never really felt like you got off them. You're off them now. How's it felt to get off them, and how has life changed for the better, man? Simple question. Simple life question.
It's a very simple, giant question. Oh, well, for me, it's also about like, you don't want to be the old druggie at a party. That's weird. This isn't the 60s. I'm not like, man, I think it's the natural baton pass of the next phase of my life. I just, in that notion of I want to live, it's like, I think I don't really smoke ciggies anymore either. It's like, I think because I've done that enough, I've taken enough drugs to kill a small boy, and just, I think that was my inner child, actually. No, but it's like, I think there's no need for.
Don't get lost in the laugh there, people. That was fucking real.
Yeah, but I think it's fine. It's fine for me to try other things for a while now too, since I did those. Like, I've got that covered,
Yeah.
And I still have a glass of wine, and I still, I think Iggy has always been my inspiration.
Yeah.
And Iggy will have a few glasses of wine, and talking to Iggy about how he went from a junkie that was a pariah, where people would say, you can do whatever you want, but just don't bring Iggy over here, to someone that really is such a celebrated, venerated monument that he is.
So I have this term I keep kicking around, because we're both about to enter into our 50s, right?
I just did.
You just did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm about to turn 50 pretty soon, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, that's cool.
It's good because of the choicelessness of it. It's good that you.
Don't fucking ruin my 50s, bro. Right?
I just want to ruin the start to them. I don't want to ruin the rest of it.
You get one day.
Yeah. Can't I have one day? Yeah.
There's Iggy kind of sums this up, right? Is that he has moved through his life as he's aged with a sense of excellence. I look at Iggy and I just go, excellence. I imagine when he drinks red wine, it's really fucking good.
It's fucking good.
Really fucking good.
It's
right?
it's like the price tags on it is like $512.
What? Why the 12?
Where's the 12?
Exactly. Where's the 12?
I won't pay $1 more than $500. Yes, you will. Now, yeah. I also think that he's done what Carl Jung would call, uniting both sides of yourself. So Iggy and I were at Lowry's, the steak place,
prime rib joint.
Yeah. And he'd always wanted to go. He'd never gone. And
Same. I've never been.
Oh, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And any hoodles would go to the goddamn Lowry's, and he's wearing just a vest with no shirt underneath, which is already a bit risque for Lowry's, where the first time I went, I had to wear a men's mustard colored jacket. I was so stoked.
They gave it to you?
Yeah, they're like,
amazing.
To go in here, you have to wear, and I was like, nah, and I was like, oh my God, this thing's...
Congratulations.
I'm a man.
You won the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that's basically...
Scooter McGavin just rolled it.
Pick up your putts, would you?
Well, maybe I might just have to go, oh my God!
Anyhow, so we go in there, and Iggy is... he just, at one point, was like, he goes, is it hot? And I was like, no. And then he just takes off his vest and puts it on his jacket. He's got no shirt on in Lowry's, and he picks up the steak and he's just eating it with his hands. And I was like, that was the goddamn best thing I ever saw in my life. Because he was just, he was being himself. It wasn't hurting anybody. He was just like, I'm like this. And he wasn't giving two wooden fucks. And they came over there. The manager comes over and he goes, I'm really sorry to say this to you, but could you please, it's a health code violation for you to have, your nipples out basically at dinner. It was like, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. Of course. But I just went back to eating the steak with his hands. It made me fall in love with him all over again, because he was gentle and sweet.
It wasn't an act of rebellion.
No, it was like, I'm going to do me until somebody says I can't, and then I'm going to decide if I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And if it's done, if the request is respectful, I'll probably, I will listen to your side and put on my vest, And I love that because he's sort of elegantly being himself,
Yeah.
you know. Or as Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, everyone else is taken.
My mum always used to say that to me, and that's the first time I've ever heard it quoted to Oscar Wilde, and it makes me really happy that my mum
Was flinging Oscar Wilde at you.
Yeah.
Such a catty bitch. Not your mom, Oscar Wilde. Sorry.
Well,
I'm going to be really clear right there.
she'd probably go, nope, you had me in one.
Hit the explosion, would you? Yeehaw.
I'm so open to all that now, man. It's like when I was a kid, I wouldn't know what to do with that.
You know, when you're a kid, you're not supposed to know anything. You're just supposed to see everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I do love the aspect of music that is childlike, where it's like, do you want to play with me? I mean, we're still saying, my guys are like, you know, hey, do you want to play with me? And at times you think, not like that, but like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice to use the same lexicon that I would have used when I was 5 in order to be yourself, you know?
I was so sad to hear about Mark, man. I've
Yeah,
told
me too.
those.
I know, me too.
I've told those Mark stories so many times. Remember that time that we sat in XFM, and we were all smoking cigarettes? I used to smoke back then too.
In the
Do you remember?
parlor.
Do you remember what Mark said? Do you remember? We both got up, and even you were like, "Mark, listen, they're exiting the whole building. We kind of fucked up. This is like 300 people have to go out onto Leicester Square because we were smoking cigarettes, and we were ready to go. The fucking fire marshal's outside, and Mark is sitting on that fucking wooden box, and he's finishing his cigarette, and he looks up. He didn't look up. He just goes, "I choose to die."
I remember we walked by like a fire person too, and they're like, did you see anybody smoking or any smoke up there? And Lanegan was like, I don't know, whoever it is, that son of a bitch.
Do you remember that story you told me once? You probably told to other people where you were having that real private conversation with them backstage at Reading or somewhere, and some kid was sidling up behind his shoulder. Do you remember that?
Oh, what, the
Yeah.
that one? Yeah. No, that was oh yeah, and then the kid rolls up and he goes, man, I'm such a huge fan of your music. It's changed my life. And Lanegan's looking, he goes, so? The best. And then he just looked back at me, and I looked over the kid, and I'm just like, like, so deflated, just like turning off the thing in front of the oil change place, just like,
It's the worst, but at the best.
oh my God.
It's the best.
But if you're it's like being insulted by John Lydon, like Johnny Rotten, where you're just like, thank you.
Yeah, it's like the Macho Man Randy Savage coming up to and grabbing your arms and go, "What are these? What are these?"
Yeah,
You know?
so the glory and the pain is there, you know.
Weren't you having a private conversation with him as well? And some kid was just milling about for 20 minutes trying to pluck up the courage to come up and tap him on the shoulder, and finally plucked up the courage and took one bold step towards you guys, and he went, "No."
He goes, no. He said it like you already know. It was also time we were sort of with that band, Trail of Dead, and you'll know it's about Trail of Dead.
Yeah.
And the drummer kid, I think his name is Jason or something. Anyways, he's kind of hyper at the time. This was many years ago, and on Songs for Deaf tour.
Yeah.
And Lanegan ends up beating him up. Right? They get in a fist fight, and Lanegan kicks his ass. Flash in the alleyway in this puddle of water, in the alley puddle.
Yep.
Which is, you decide.
Yep.
It's a dealer's choice of what's the liquid.
Yep.
Anyways, next morning I'm talking to Lanegan, and he's, going, God damn the thing with this, and I'm laughing because that was my job, is to just enjoy his crotchetiness, know? Which I did well. I did my job on that, and the kid, Jason, walks up and goes, hey, man, I'm really sorry I said all that stuff to you last night. And Lanegan's, he doesn't even look over, and he goes, yeah, I'm sorry I kicked your ass. Anyways, what about these sandwiches? They're broken. He just
moved on.
There was another moment he was fucked about his mind, and perhaps I was too. It was the morning, so it was no business still being that way. And he's kind of out on the couch, and Joey is making a sandwich, and Lanegan just sits up like Dracula, like, rises, and he looks over at Joey and he goes, where'd you download that sandwich? And just can't fucking get shit like that out of my mind. Oh, but that's the thing. See, I think this is why I don't like to tell people what to do, because I have had the blessing, the luxury, the pleasure of being.
Where'd you download that sandwich?
But I say that to my kids if they're walking, even though I don't want a sandwich. I often say to people, or even just to throw them off your scent emotionally, where someone walks, it's like, what can I get you to drink? And you look at the person next to you and go, where'd you download that sandwich? And then everyone's like, what the fuck do I do? You're like, give me a goddamn drink is what you do. I don't know. But I've had this luxury, this pleasure of being around these truly idiosyncratic, what certainly would be diagnosed today as like needs help sort of folks. But I never, in various states of sobriety and being and understanding I never sought to say like, you know what you need to do. I mean, that's why letting people go in those situations has been really hard to get my head around, because I don't really tell people what you know what you need to do with your life. And it feels like having to take that step and parting ways in a harsh way. It needs to be very serious for me to do that, because I don't know what you should do. And plus, I'm just enjoying you and accepting you for who you are, because we're in the business of taking almost our mental health issues and turning them up. Like, you've got trauma, turn it up. That's what we do here. But it is a way to get it off your chest and off your shoulders. If you do this with that kind of honesty, you can actually become a better person, I believe. And you can get rid of that baggage and sort of be like, well, it's yours now, which is a bit of a diss, I suppose, but it's also done in a loving way, And, and that's why, and the thing I can't control is all this part of it. So I don't really try to control, especially now, I don't even try to control it at all.
We can't control it when our friends get sick, and we can't control it when love disappears. These are things we just cannot control. And, my therapist said something to me, because I was going through a lot of change in my life, and I was in a fucking total mess about it. And he was like, yeah, you're a real classic walking, talking exercise and trying to control the uncontrollable. And I said, yeah. And he said, the thing about change, man, is you're always one step behind it.
Yeah.
No, that's a Joshua Hommeism.
Yeah, well, and also, I'm a bit of a nowist, so I try to get lost in the moment, because I know it's fleeting, and the past is the past, and 5 minutes from now is always 5 minutes from now. And at times I've gotten too immersed in the moment, where it's been ultimately maybe selfish, because I'm just so where I am, not thinking about anything, the blinders of stuck in the now. I love to appreciate what's going on, and with so many people lost, I'm glad I got to appreciate those moments, and I still get to love them, I still get to do that. I still get to love them, even though they're not physically here. I still get that chance. So I like talking about Mark. I like talking about Rio. I like talking about Tony, and, for me, I like talking about Taylor. There's 11 of them now in the last 2 years. But that's okay, because I still get to love them, So, and that will have to do.
Yeah, because we're all going to hit the water.
Yeah, I'm all gonna hit the water. I'm still like, more oysters.
And I'm like, play something else.
Yeah, don't play that again.
This is not the last song I want to hear. Try something else.
Well, but I someone was saying, well, that seems quite negative. And I was like, well, I don't think so at all. It's just very realistic and very...
Why would that be negative?
I don't know.
Are we ignoring mortality in our 50s? I don't think so.
To me, it's very positive, because it's just like admitting what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the first key to accepting something, is saying, I fucking hate it, but I get it.
And it's also not in keeping, as we established before, in what the job description was. The whole idea. That's what I meant about denial. I wasn't being so specific to you. I was saying anybody who goes out there and plays in front of tons of people and their whole life revolves around making art and being judged on it and making money from it. There's a fucking whole job description is to go through life being to some degree in denial. That's the whole fucking point.
Sure.
That's the point.
Absolutely. Well, or just... denial by proxy, like almost like, well, I'm going to try to overcome it anyways. I just think that the drawback here is that if people again, like I said, the adoration or hatred of strangers is a tough thing. I try to, like, I love our fans, but if someone thinks I'm the worst thing since sliced bread or the best thing since sliced bread, I know it's not true. I just don't ever worry about that.
Well, they're out to get you anyway,
Yeah,
aren't they? The kids, the man, the chicks, the breaks.
yeah,
And as far as I'm concerned, if I was you, I don't care what you say anymore.
yeah.
It
That's the
doesn't
thing.
matter anyway.
At least you know it's real. And I think at the end of the day, like I said before, for someone else to love it, I need to love it. For someone else to do something real for someone, it has to be real for me. So how could I write about anything else but the, like, most aggressively raw sections of my own life? I don't think I'm supposed to do that.
That's the job.
Yeah, that's
The job is to translate the pain.
yeah, that's the job.
That's the
You know,
job.
and find the hallelujah in it.
Yeah. And then go out on stage and watch people react to it in real time. I loved watching you applaud. I loved watching you at Boston Calling finish the first two songs and immediately clap.
Well, they were so good. It was such a beautiful night. I was glad to be there.
It was such a simple gesture for me to see it. I mean, to start with Misfit Love, first of all, fuck you. It's so brutally brilliant.
Well, that feels good because that's the band I would like to be in if I could. It's the band that plays that, and so I think you have to. It's like setting the table. Like, how do you come out and say, "Who do I wish I are?" It's like I are this.
Yeah, it's the perfect combination of the desert and Bowie I think you've ever captured. It's that perfect, just that fucking like, whoa, Bowie at his most like robot, like very fucking Germanic.
Don't you miss having Bowie around?
And Prince.
And I didn't know him at all.
And Aretha.
And Lemmy.
God,
Like I
man.
miss my Bowie time.
Yeah,
It made it sound like tummy time, like
it
like
kind
a
of
child.
was though. It kind of was though. It was like it's in my tummy and it feels weird. That's what Bowie is to me. Bowie, even when I listen back to like Let's Dance or that album or whatever, which was Bowie at his kind of suited and booted, stadium filling biggest.
Yeah.
It still feels like China Girl is just a weirdly strange song.
That's a Nicky song.
It's a Nicky song. That's right. Correct.
Yeah, but there's the even the last thing.
Modern Love is a fucking strange song. I don't
Yeah.
want to go. I want to start get things done.
Yeah.
It's just so that whole era. And so if that's his most commercial, quote unquote,
Yeah.
the rest of it is just the weirdest success story ever.
It really is because it starts from an art place, such a heavily art place. And for me, I don't feel that a lot of stuff is starting from an art place too, especially because of the internet. People want to blow up and
Yeah, it's
go
like
viral.
attention first, attention currency first, and maybe it gets artistic
and,
later.
and
I get that.
instead of where you need to emerge fully formed when you're on the internet. It's just like it already needs to be done. Or you'll have your growing pains shoved in your face on YouTube for the rest of your life. I can't imagine like kids that are like 9, like I'm gonna pair this apple, and just having to deal with that when you're 25. Where you're like, Jesus, having that shit held up in your face is really strange.
Well, you were in the desert figuring it the fuck out.
Well, no one told you were wrong, so you do something. You're like, "Is this right?" And someone's like, "I don't know." Yeah, which is a great thing to have happen. Is just someone to deny knowledge. So you experiment on your own.
I've been collecting vinyl. That's my big midlife crisis. Baggy trousers and vinyl. It's pretty mellow.
Yeah,
it's pretty mellow. And
wow, what a revolt!
It's been a good one. My wife's very happy. She's like, you're good.
You have a lot of pockets. How are you putting vinyl in your jeans?
Sometimes it's like I don't feel like I'm even wearing trousers. It's awesome. Today's a rare day. I wore jeans just for you.
That's called the skirt. It's just one leg.
Well, I knew if I wore my regular trousers, the first thing you would have said to me after 4 years is, "What are those?"
What are you, smuggling potatoes?
I couldn't fucking bear it.
When you're 19, you're like, I wonder if I could change the world. And then you're like, well, at least the world that I'm in right now.
Yeah, at least these 100 kids and these people in the desert. And,
yeah. And I think there's something wonderful about the gift of nothing, right? So oh shit, evacuate the building. Lanegan, get out. No, just the freedom to fail and the lack of influence, saying, I wonder if this is right. It feels right. and just letting that be enough, moving at the speed of inspiration and just being okay with that, there's something gentle about that that's cool. I think learning should be gentle or people don't want to do it. You show me a piano player who gets hit with a ruler by his piano teacher, and I'll show you someone that doesn't play piano.
Facts.
And I just think in general, learning should be gentle like that. So you're including people.
Yeah.
Getting them excited about it.
That's what it was. It's like you guys were figuring it out in real time. And also, you were already broken. That's what's so great about Caius, is that the sound, everything about it was not fucking right, which is why it was so perfect.
Yeah.
It was so heavy and deep and just fucking raw and powerful.
Using the wrong shit, doing the wrong shit over and over. I guess we're like 2 wrongs don't make it right, but 40 wrongs make it weird.
40 wrongs make it fucking perfect. I mean, I highly recommend that while we're embracing this new Queens of the Stone Age era, that you do go back if you listen to this podcast and really immerse yourself in where it began, because those albums just age beautifully, bro. They are wrinkled and aged, but they are lean, and I still wouldn't fuck with them. If I saw Caius drinking in the bar right now and I thought I could take that old man, he'd fucking kick my ass in an alley in a puddle.
Well, we were brutal. It was also a brutal place. I realized how I grew up in a culture of violence too. It's just I realized how brutal things were. You play a generator party where there's no law, no adults, and kids do all the extremes in one night. They beat each other up, they make out, they have sex, they drink, and they do it all at the very extreme level. And it was oftentimes it was terrifying to go there. You'd get butterflies. You'd turn around this canyon and all these fires would be there.
It's fucking Mad Max. It's the guy on the front of the fucking
truck.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
It's like fucking fucking stinger.
But that's what it felt like. That it is. Witness me. Just all that shit.
Valhalla!
All that shit made so much sense to me the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, where are you from? Are you from the desert? Yes. Look.
Yeah, but they're from a harsher desert than even your desert, I think. I mean, the Australian desert is like...
Oh, it's brutal.
I mean, you've got to drive 65 hours to get from Sydney to Melbourne. There's nothing in between.
But that's what you learn in the desert quickly, is that everything there kills you. And even the plants are like, get the fuck off of me.
Yeah.
And
don't eat me.
And at night, everything really comes out, which I always felt like Caius and the party scene there too was like that. It was like, actually, all the big animals come out at night. That's when you really need to watch your ass. Everything is nocturnal because did you witness the day? It's just like everyone's being baconed, frying.
It's fucking miracle of life, dude. I mean, I've said this over and over again. It's a mantra for me because I'm catching up with people now making their 10th, 15th, 20th record. I feel like this when I saw Dave the other night off the record. We just had this night where we ended up being in the same room, and it was beautiful, and I felt so grateful just to still be around, and for him to be around and you to be around, and like, dude, we've known each other more than 20 years.
I love Dave so much, and he's been through so much too, and everyone goes through all this stuff, but to go through it, even as terrible as some of it is, you go through it at the same time, it's good to have, because that tells me we're growing together naturally in the same direction, and I just, I guess I just value that stuff. And it's not that I value it more than ever. It's just that I'm aware of it more than I'm aware of the size of it now. Before it's like you pull back the curtain, you're like, thank God this is here. But now it's like, pull all the curtain back. I want to see how far this goes, how much this care is, how much
Because for the first time, I feel like in your life, as someone who knows you a bit, to be able to say this, for reasons traumatic and difficult, as well as ultimately part of life that may lead to some form of reward, you had to stop. Dude, you never fucking stopped. You never stopped.
Doesn't really matter what it was either. I never stopped.
You never stopped. You admit,
well, but there was no reason to. There was no reason to stop, and that's good things, bad things, all things.
Yeah.
It just, and also, I like a brick wall and thinking through it, over it, under it, or around it. Which one are we going to do? But I don't ever think we're stopping here. And so but after years of running through and around and over, you start to drag a leg and you start to go slower. And it's like, and emotionally you do that too. And And philosophically, you do that too.
I just started to feel very, in my own way, because I never stopped either in my own way, I just started to feel very full up. And that was the first time I realized that actually we are finite. Because we talk about the mind and all this stuff having infinite possibility and infinite space. And I was like, damn, I don't have a lot of space to ingest good stuff.
Yeah.
I got to download some shitty stuff.
Yeah.
I got to stop. I got to clear out.
Right before the Iggy record, excuse me, I went and saw this guy for the first time, and he took my blood and all this stuff, and he was telling me about my blood type, and he was like, dude, he's like, based on your blood type, you like to give, and you don't like to take. And I was like, yeah. And then he said, what I would like you to do is I would like you to, I think you've probably accepted and agreed to do about 5 or 6 things just out of wanting to agree because you like the person, even though you don't want to do them, but you've agreed to it. I'd like you to go home and cancel all 5 of those things.
Was that like wait, that was...
It's like right before the Iggy record.
And also, didn't you call me up after that and cancel lunch?
5 times.
Oh, yeah, all right. I'd booked 5 lunches because he always canceled them, and he canceled them all in one go, and I never understood why, and now I realize.
No, I had my people do it. But so I did. I went home and I canceled these 5 things, and he said, you need to create space for the right thing to come in.
There it is.
Right. So there
it is.
And because I'd never been to a doctor, and I was like, well, I'm here, so I'll probably listen to him at least once, right? And he did, and then 2 weeks later, Iggy called me and was like, "You want to work together on And I was like, okay, now I have no other. That's my only metadata for if that works or not. But I was like, it did work so much so that after the Iggy record, I was like, I don't know what to do now because that's the pinnacle for me.
I always felt like there was trust issues when it came to that sort of stuff. Like, I've got this. Like, it was like, I've got this. Don't worry about it. I got this.
Well, I think my thing is always like panic breeds panic and confidence breeds confidence. And I think, if you're leading people, you have to have somewhere to go, and you don't. Morale is everything. In an art collective thing, or in general, morale is everything. And certainly, if I don't think any of the roles that people play are more or less important. It's just they're also vital for the gestalt of the whole thing, And but if it's your job to sort of steer the ship, even though you didn't build it, you don't put up the sails and all. If it's your job to steer, then being like panicked, even if you feel that inside, it's not good to show that. That's what I understood.
We'll charter a direction.
Right. And yeah, and like it's important to, in the tough situations, maintain your composure, And so I think oftentimes that made me sort of not acknowledge when I was feeling like, holy fuck, oh my God, and that's cool. It got me here. I'm cool with that, It's not what I use necessarily now, but I'm good with it.
Well, this album is more than any fan could ever have hoped or expected, because it's right up there with the greatest you've ever made. I mean,
thank you.
I
appreciate that.
You're long down the road with this band, and dude, I mean, I always said there's only 2 or 3 artists in my life that have never let me down, and
and I've let you down entirely.
No room for our usual game of table tennis with the jokes. Like, genuinely, every one of your albums has delivered. I feel that way about Deftones too. They never fucking let me down.
Yeah, they're serious too.
They fucking show up
They're very
every
serious.
time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that you're here and you've made this amazing album with your friends, and start to finish, dude, is fucking like Negative Space. Like when you, it's just fucking. Oh man, it's like, come on.
I guess the music side too. It's just chasing a good feeling. Like you talk about that chorus going.
It's such a simple thing, right? Just go heavy on the fucking crash, and it just works.
Right, and everyone goes boom, 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 and so you're chasing a good feeling. You go, that feels really good.
Really good.
And then the question is, well, what are you going to do over that? Or what are you going to sing over that? Or are you going to say what? But it does start with just chasing a feeling. Just trying to catch up to a good feeling, trying to run alongside a good feeling. Like, hey. you know. And but I think that's good. I also think like just wanting to chase a good feeling, that's just good enough.
God, especially when you've been at a point in your life when you're not sure where the chase even begins. Like, dude, I know it, man. You've been there. I've been there. We recognize that in each other now. We can talk about that off the record sometime. You know, it's when those points when you're like, I don't even know if I'm ever going to find a feeling worth chasing again.
Yeah, and I'd take it a step further. It was like, I don't. When you're in moments where you're like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, you know, and you're just like, oh, this is that feeling. Like I used to be really upset at Tony for what he did, you know, Bourdain. I was so upset. Um, and then all of a sudden I found myself going like, oh yeah, I got it. I got it. I get it. And and but then I go back to that brick wall. It's like, but fuck this. I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna go around it. I'll go under it because I never had that feeling before. Like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, but I've had it now. And I've had it in a multitude of situations in a very tight time frame, like a couple of years, you know. But I'm also thankful for that too now because that that making it through told me that I can make it through, you know? Like I can. And I also would say that to somebody else. It's like just try to make it through and when you do, you'll know it's true.
God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
cried,
can.
and then I cried, and then Maggie laughed. She's such a little trooper.
Yeah. That's all right though, bro. That's all right.